Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Series 3, Episode 11 promo. 11. I can't believe it's the 11th. 3 months we've been going to Series 3, and they said it wouldn't last March, April time. So here we still are, hopefully providing some entertainment to you over the airwaves, over YouTube. Don't forget our channel. Please subscribe, hit like and share. And obviously join us also on Facebook Live, where we will be back to our normal time and normal evening of Thursday at 7 o'clock for our series finale. And we did say that we were going to give you a Bobby Dazzler. We have got a Bobby Dazzler for you. So you'll be silly not to tune in on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Keep getting my times wrong, don't I, K-Dog, at the moment?
You do.
Definitely 7 o'clock on Thursday. Please join us for an absolute joy of. We have got a Bobby Dazzler for you. So you'll be silly. Keep getting my times wrong, don't I, K-Dog? Is that you, K-Dog? Are you trying to record or?
No, I was trying to turn my volume down. Just to prove once again, Daryl, we don't just throw it together.
Oh, yes, we do. Anyway, over to you. We've got a special guest tonight, and we're not going to keep it long. So we will announce that very shortly. But K-Dog, just do our normal promos.
Absolutely, yep. Before I do, we've had a message from Richard Grover, one of our regular viewers, just asking for a birthday shout-out. He's 35 years old today, so happy birthday, young man. He's still younger than me and very much younger than you. So happy birthday to Richard. Nice to see you watching. So that's great. Good to see that you're getting geared up for the new cricket season. Yeah, you said we've been non-stop since January. Actually, we stopped on Thursday, didn't we? Quite significantly.
We had a bit of a pause. Yeah,
we did. But thank you for everybody for your kind comments. It was one of those things. The technology hasn't let us down much actually over three series. It did let us down. Hopefully tonight it won't let us down. So yeah, very quick welcomes and thank yous. Thank you as always to Graham Woodward, Great Minds in Summertown in Oxford, for his kind sponsorship of our programme. He's been providing the wine, the bottle of wine every week for the winner. First person to correctly guess. The first person to correctly guess last week, the one thing we did have was Steve Bates correctly guessed. So I'll get in touch with Steve at some point, and we will try and get a bottle of wine winging its way to you. Even though it was really poor text, Steve managed to correctly guess. So congratulations to Steve for that one. Shifter under which was Superstar, and somebody, of course, who took one of the greatest ever catches seen at Lords, Steve Bates, of course, in the Village Cup. One of the greatest catches in history of Lords, I would venture to suggest. Also, a big thank you.
Wasn't it? That was Bates' own. It was his only catch. That's why it was memorable.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
I saw it. It was quite good, to be fair. Big thank you also, of course, to Lorna and Andy Bone from Sports Shots. They've been filling their website full of cricketing news over the last few weeks. www.sportsshots.org.uk. Buckingham Town continuing their pre-season signing spree with the capture of young Will Woodley, one of our former county players, Daryl, who's joined Buckingham this week. So interesting signing that. I think they're sort of certainly looking to try and progress this year. And also, finally, of course, a massive thank you to Paul Humphreys from Pop Activation, who will be providing all the shirts and sponsorship for our charity match on the 31st of May. And if the weather's like it is today on the 31st of May, it'll be very nice indeed. I know there's snow on the way next week, but beautiful weather today. And we're looking forward to the start of the season. We're looking forward to our charity game. So, Woodsy, I think without further ado, and hoping that the technology live to Cape Town doesn't let us down today. Yes, ladies and gents, we're back to Cape Town today. And it's take two. It's take two. Because Dennis Norden, if you're one of those people, it'll be all right on the night. And I think, Darren, I'm going to let you introduce our non-masked cricketer, who is not masked up.
Who is going under the nickname of Mola. Welcome to Andy Moles. How you doing, Andy?
I'm very good, guys. Lovely to see you again.
And you. An inglorious Technicolor, I hasten to add. And voice as well, which is good. Andy, we didn't get a chance to really hear some of your answers last week to the questions that we had. So what's it been like for you, and what's it like in Cape Town at the moment?
Well, obviously, we haven't had such severe lockdown as you guys have experienced over in the UK. We had an original sort of 3 or 4 months where we had hard lockdown, but then they opened up the economy here, and we have to wear masks and social distancing, and there's been a curfew at night. But pretty much the last sort of 3-4 months, it's been pretty normal living, really, apart from masks, social distancing, and sanitizing your hands.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's still going here for a little while, but I think there's light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccinations, taking shape. So it's all going well, I think, and certainly cricket is going to return in its entirety, I think, hopefully anyway. So we're looking forward to that. I'm going to go straight in with the question of I know you're coaching that you've had, but I'm going to go straight into when you coached Afghanistan, because obviously, with the country there and what that brings, of what your experiences were there, and also of an up and coming team, because they've got some decent players there now, haven't they?
Yeah, they're. Everybody knows about India and Pakistan, and to a certain degree Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, but the cricket is like a religion. It's a sport in the world. It's not a sport, it's a religion. And specifically in Afghanistan, with all the unfortunate the way the country has had hardship through the war, and there's a lot of, they're on the front page for the wrong reason, the country. Whereas cricket, it gives them an opportunity to spread good news. And they've shown over the last 10 years, 11 years since they've been recognised by the ICC to become a full Test playing nation is absolutely magnificent on their behalf. You look at the facilities that they have. Club grounds in England have got far better facilities than any of the sort of practice facilities that they have in Afghanistan.
Absolutely, and was it difficult to coach out there? Or was it, just a joy to be a part of that sort of rise, if you like?
I think if you ask any coach, there's always difficulties wherever you go. Obviously, one of the main problems is the language barrier. So you're having to speak for 1 or 2 sentences and stop, and then there's a translator who'll step in and translate for you. But on the whole, I'd say 80% of the players know enough English to get by. There's just 1 or 2 that struggle, and you get one of the players to translate to them. But the passion that they have for their cricket, and they wear their heart on the sleeve. They let you know straight away if they're not happy or if things are not going right. And that was one of the biggest challenges, especially when I started working with the national team, is to get them to be calm under pressure, because they're volatile people. If there's a problem, they not literally they want to fight with you on the field, but they won't back down in any situation, and they fight fire with fire. So if a spell at them, for example, if they have 10 balls, 12 balls, dot balls, or not very many runs, and they get behind the over rate, well, the next 2 or 3 must go out the ground for 6, and trying to get them to understand they have to bat for longer periods of time, because they're brought up on 20-20 cricket and 50 over cricket. That's all they play, or that's all they did play. And now they're getting the opportunity to play some Test match cricket, and even the 50 over stuff, you see the way they play, they get undone by losing the patience when somebody bowls a good spell, or 2 bowlers sort of block them up for a while, and they lose 2 or 3 wickets through, just not a bit of naivety in the way they play the game.
Yeah, I felt in the last, or certainly this last one-day internationals, England, India, that first one-dayer where England were in a commanding position. They should have won that game from where they were, but they still had this, audacity almost to say, well, no, I'm just going to go in and play freely, and we'll get across the finishing line anyway. But to me, we were saying about our under-18s, we would be tearing our hair out if we were in that position and lost it from there. Do you know what I mean? Is
Well,
it?
Yeah. I was going to say, when I coached Afghanistan in the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand, the last fixture we played was against England in Perth, where they had that terrible World Cup campaign. And at the end of that game, Moores was the coach and Ian Bell was playing. And I spoke to Belly, and he thought he'd had a reasonable campaign. I think he averaged 40 or something. But the strike rate was such that it wasn't the way they wanted to play in future. And in came the new captain, and excuse me, his name escapes me at the moment, the England one-day captain. Just
Owen Morgan.
The England one-day captain.
Morgan. Yeah, Morgan.
Owen Morgan. Owen Morgan came in with coach, and they transformed the way England approached one-day cricket. And you look at the way they played; they had a no-fear mentality, and they decided they were going to score at 6 runs and over, from the first over all the way to the end. And one of the riches of the England team at the moment, and there's obviously a lot being said at the moment about the rotation policy, but you look at their one-day side, they've got, when they pick, arguably, when they get their best side on the field, they've got people coming in at 7 and 8 that are good enough to bat in other countries at 4-5. So they've got the depth and they've got the people, and especially in the shorter form of the game, but when it goes into the 50 over stuff, they just believe that the game is short enough for them all to express themselves, and they have the backing, the captain and the coach, with no failure. When they don't win, they just say, oh, don't worry, we'll get it right next time. They're all building to the next level. Okay. They've got their targets in the future. And this Indian tour, I actually thought there was some magnificent cricket played there. To watch the way that players on both sides played, I mean, it was a joy to watch. Yes, disappointing we lost all 3 series. And perhaps if we had picked our best side for every game, it might have well been a different result. However, they're looking to get the best side ready for the Ashes and the best side ready for the World Cup down the road. And with this COVID and the bubble and everything else, it is quite difficult mentally to keep players locked up for 3-4 months. And so I think that's one of the reasons why they're letting people come in now. But you look at the way that England have transformed the white ball cricket, and they won the game at Lords against New Zealand, and I think that they'll be very, very strong come when they head to India for the World Cup. But the thing is, India are a very, very strong side anywhere in the world, but when they're at home, they're a very, very difficult beat.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is that non-fear cricket, isn't it? At the end of the day, and I think it's exciting to watch, isn't it? At the end of the day, and I think other sides are trying to do the same, aren't they? And it's you can't fault that, because probably 9 times out of 10 they're going to get over the finishing line with that sort of cricket. Is that something? I mean, you alluded there, about the COVID bubbles and the rotation. You would sort of endorse some of the decisions that England made on that front in the Test matches and the T20s and the one-dayers?
I question whether Owen should have been released for the Test match, particularly the last one, after the way he bowled and Betts, I think it was seemed to be struggling. But they've obviously got a long-term plan. They've sat down with the chief of selectors, and the one thing they've got a plan in place. And the one thing is, it looks as if they're sticking to it come hell or high water. And they've been, they've hit their targets. They won the T20 World Cup. They're now going to go. They're now going to go. Sorry, the 50 over World Cup. But they've been successful in the big games. They've obviously hit the Silverwood. They've targeted the Ashes, and they've targeted the World Cup whenever it'll happen, because it looks as if it may well be pushed back again with the COVID and everything else. So, it's difficult to be pushing to date lines in the sand, keeping everybody fit, and importantly, getting everybody to peak at the right time to perform in those massive series.
Yeah, absolutely. Kieran, have you got some questions for Andy there? I know they've been coming in, haven't they? So
Andy, I wanted to go back to the Afghanistan team, and I'm not sure how much sort of coaching or how much you've seen of Rashid Khan, but in Rashid Khan, obviously an incredibly talented player. He's already taken something like 34, 35 wickets in Test cricket already at an average of 22. I mean, from a layman looking outwards, looking at him, he's right up there. Rashid Khan has potential to become, one of the top sort of players in Test cricket. I mean, his stats so far are second to none, aren't they?
Yeah, his stats obviously in white ball cricket. He's more dangerous for people coming after him because he bowls it so quickly and his variations are so subtle and so good that he catch out. Test match cricket, I think I was in charge of the side when we won in Bangladesh, and I think 13 wickets. But it was quite interesting because Bangladesh a turning wicket, but unfortunately they lost the toss and we batted first and turned the tables on them. But the thing about Rashid Khan is he's generally a nice guy. A lot of, unfortunately, you deal with a lot of egos in the sport. Here is a man that perhaps does deserve to have an ego, but he doesn't have one. He's always helpful to other players, and when you see him on tour, especially in Afghanistan, but whenever you're going away, but in Afghanistan, everybody in the country, he's probably the most popular Afghani in the whole world. Everybody knows him around the world, but he always got him to help kids and talk to people, help them with a bit of. He's a really top guy, but his cricketing ability. He came through when I was in charge of the national side in that series I just mentioned, the World Cup. He was in the under-19, so I didn't see much of him. He was operating below me. Then I left Afghanistan for 18 months and then came back and took over their under-19 and under-23 cricket, developed their players for the future. And he sort of leapfrogged out of the under-19s into the national side. And I'd seen him on TV and I bumped into him. And he was just so, thank you, sir, for coming to help our players. We need to help our players, because we don't get people come to Afghanistan. He's just a really nice guy, and he's a really good communicator. And it's really nice to see him do well.
It really is, and I think also I was going to say I remember back when Bangladesh became a test playing nation, and I remember very, very clearly they played what they called a top end tour in Australia. So very early in their test status, they played a tour in Australia in the Australian winter, so in sort of Cairns and Darwin and Townsville. And I remember very clearly the likes of a Brett Lee and Glenn McGrath actually, after a game of cricket, actually spending time with the Bangladeshi players and teaching them things and teaching them, how they bowl. And I get the impression with Afghanistan that a lot of nations around the world, a lot of people around the world, are absolutely thrilled to see the likes of an Afghanistan sort of getting their test day. Ireland as well, of course, but it could only be good for the future of world cricket on the world stage to have these so-called developed nations, the likes of an Ireland and Afghanistan, to actually be plying their trade against the best.
Yeah, well, I've left Afghanistan cricket now after for the COVID. I was director of cricket. Lance Klusener came in and took over the coaching role, and I became director of cricket. One of my roles was to try and get more cricket. The problem with Afghanistan cricket at the moment is they need to play against stronger teams. Over the last 2 years, we played Ireland and Zimbabwe, and then we go to a World Cup and play against Ireland, and we cope because the extra skill for the extra pace. The seaming conditions of the last World Cup in England, when it was cold and damp, we'd never come across those issues. So my challenge was to try and talk to other countries about trying. Let us come and play your A teams. Let us come and we need to play cricket. The only way that Afghanistan, especially in the longer term form game, is going to get better, is to play. Like when I was playing, we played against Sri Lanka. They became a test player. So came over, played about 8 or 9 county sides, on a tour, and that's how they got better. Aravinda de Silva was playing then, and all that side, and they came across. That's what I was trying. But it's so difficult with the COVID, obviously. But the problem, unfortunately, is the main test playing countries do not want to play Afghanistan. It's not viable as a TV. People won't advertise. People, unfortunately, the match against Australia, England, India, they're going to be over in 3 days because we've got to learn how to apply ourselves. As I said before, our batsmen want to light past score 4s and 6s all the time. They don't understand the need to bat. I mean, one of the things I spoke to them about is I judged our test players, our batsmen, by how many balls they faced, not by how many runs they scored. Because I needed to get them to understand they had to bat for 3-4 hours to score a test match in test match cricket, not 170 balls as they've done for the last 4 or 5 years when they play domestic cricket or when they play Ireland and Zimbabwe. They're good enough to score 70, 80 runs off 50 balls at that level. But are they good enough? And the answer, in my opinion, is no at the moment to do that against the top playing sides. So therefore, they need to be exposed. They need to play against Australia. They were supposed to go to Australia. Unfortunately, it was cancelled in October. Now, hopefully, that'll be rearranged next year. But the other thing is especially T20 and the over cricket. People like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. When I tried to get fixtures against them a year ago, but they don't want to play against us because if they lose to us, we get ranking points and we'll overtake them because we are capable of beating those sides. But they know that too well. So therefore, they don't want to play us. In the next World Cup, they're going to qualify to play in the next World Cup, like West Indies did for the because we beat them and we got first. So there's a lot of things going behind the scenes. When it's not just you say, "Oh yeah, we'll go and play against Afghanistan." Some of the teams don't want to play us because if they were to lose, then we would gain valuable ICC points, and it would put us in a strong position to get into the next World Cup and not go through the qualifying stages. And also, then when you talk about Test match cricket, the big sides, England, Australia, India, even South Africa to a certain degree, although I think we're catching them and South African cricket's gone down a little bit, the big boys, financially, it's not in their interest to be playing against us. And yet, if we played against them, we would improve really quickly.
I mean, you make a really good point, and actually, there's a really good analogy there. You mentioned at the start of that Sri Lanka, and I'm relatively young, but I do remember when Sri Lanka first emerged onto the Test match stage back in the early 1980s. It was always Sri Lanka were always looked upon in that way, weren't they? It was kind of like tack them onto the end of a series, just give them one game, and it was like that for a while until teams actually realised that there was some talent in Sri Lanka. And I know that there's still only generally 3 Test match series, but they developed that status, didn't they, over a number of years? And I guess what I'm saying here is it's really important for these smaller nations to have that opportunity to develop that status and prove what they can do.
Yeah, the big thing is that I think that there's obviously unofficial. There's 2 leagues, you've got the top boys and you've got the people who just below them, the Sri Lankas, the West Indies, and Bangladesh, and maybe 1 or 2 others. They don't want to play against us because they're scared of losing. But on the other hand, they also want to play against. They want to play big sides more because they want to improve their cricket as well. So I think the only way around it is the ICC need to make a fixture list where everybody plays everybody, and at the moment that's not in place. And they do a future tours program at the moment for the next 3-4 years, and if you're not in it, then that's set in stone. You can't get into it. So all you can play is get the odd throwaway bone every now and again when Australia said, "Okay, you can come across and play a series here." I think Pakistan are interested in playing some cricket against us later in the year, so that'll be good for them. So it's the same as anything. When you step up in that level if you compete. You can't step up. You can't put somebody from Division 3 in England to go and play against Manchester City in the Premiership and next up. The only way they're going to get better is being exposed to play against better players in those conditions more often.
I mean, can you see any sort of any merit or any scope in having kind of like a 2-tier sort of Test Championship and actually have promotion relegation? So actually, some of the teams that are ranked 6, 7, 8 at the moment, the likes of Pakistan, West Indies, that there's a danger that there's relegation promotion. Could that work? It does obviously in County Championship. They've got 2 tiers. Would that be something that might be a consideration in the future?
Yeah, I think work, and I think it'd be great for Afghanistan and Ireland. But the problem is that the big boys would then more money at the top. It's all about money at the end of the day. England, Australia, India, they play against each other all the time because TV want to cover those series. Sponsors want to be involved. But Afghanistan versus Australia, unfortunately, at the moment, will be over in 3 days at best. But so therefore, once you get that break, there'll be a disparity in money paid out by the ICC as well. So therefore, as soon as you get 2 leagues, the people in the top league will say we want more money than people in the second league because we're the best. Then the people in the second league are going to object to that, and then you're going to have all sorts of issues. So, unfortunately, it all comes to finances of the game, and that's the great skill and the problem that the ICC have got to manage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a difficult thing to manage, but with the emergence of these nations, I think that certainly if Test cricket can survive, which I personally hope it can, and I'm sure it will, then I think I agree with you completely that a future sort of programme to incorporate these sizes is really, really critical. Darryl, I'm going to hand back to you. I'm going to see if I can collect a few questions. I know we want to talk a bit about Andy's career as a batsman and obviously what he's been doing recently and obviously some of the setbacks that Andy's had. Significant setbacks, which I know that he's happy to talk about. So I'll hand back to you, Darryl, and I'll collate a few of the questions that have come in, and we'll bring those back in a bit later.
Yeah, I was gonna start. I mean, you've also coached Kenya, haven't you, and Scotland and England under 19s and New Zealand. I mean, it seems to me that I don't know. Was there more passion at Afghanistan than there were at those other places? Would you say?
I think every position of coach has always been has had its issues. Obviously, Afghanistan. I remember the very first day I turned up. I flew from Cape Town to Dubai, and then you wait there for a while. You get on a plane from Dubai to Kabul, and I waited there. And I think, well, my brother, who is works in anti-terrorism, sort of warned me. He didn't want me to go because he'd had the inside line of all the problems that are going on in Kabul since 5 years ago now. He said, and I said, well, I've got to work, I've got to get an income, and part of me, I wanted to go and see what it was like. I sat in the arrivals, also the departure gate, and I looked around and you see a lot of Afghans in the traditional dress, and they're all waiting down the plane, and then you see the young buzz cut squaddies or Americans or whatever, a lot of them being private contractors going out there to work, and they get on the plane, and I went to Kabul, and they said to careful, where you go. And what happened? What I learned from going there is I literally, when I went to Kabul, I was picked up at the airport in an armored, like a Land Rover, armored plated vehicle, taken to the ground, which you drove in through big gates with armed guards, AK-47s, and there's probably about 10 or 12 of them milling around, and then they have turrets around the ground, looking out with 2 or 3 gunmen guards in each one. So at the ground, you feel quite. So there's a lot of security, and then you go back to the hotel. And where I lived there is I went to my hotel room, had room service, because The problem is that hotels, if there's an incident, the gunmen go to populated areas and spray ammunition. So I didn't go to the point. I just went into the hotel, to my room, stayed in my room, got up the next morning, had breakfast in my room, then went to ground on the ground again with an armored vehicle to the ground, and then once I got to the ground, and the danger is that you get you think everything's okay after your third, fourth visit, but the danger is always there. Although, having said that, I must admit the Afghan Cricket Association, they did their very best to look after my security at all times. And if there was anything going on, or they'd ring me and say, "You're not going to work today. We hear there's an issue on the road between you coming to the ground, so you just stay where you are." And if I was due to the country and there's an upgrading in activity, then they say, "Well, you just stay away. We will let you know when we come back." So they were excellent. They looked after me and had my best interests at heart at all times. The good thing is about cricket is it something that the Taliban embraced, gave, and the government, because it put Afghanistan on the sports pages and the national press in a good way, and they've got a lot of magnificent press for cricketers for the country. So when I was there, the Taliban message through their communications to say, Andy Moles, we're not going to come and get you. You're not on our list, because we're really glad that you're here and you're helping Afghans get better, and it's really good for the country. However, if you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the car bomb goes, then just unfortunate. I did at least say they wouldn't. They didn't target Andy Moles being in the country. I wasn't a target.
Did you feel safe when?
Half a night.
Did you feel safe while you were there, Andy?
Most of the time, yes. As I say, you get a little bit blasé after a while because you get used to it. It's just normal. But every now and again, the most time we really felt vulnerable is if you were in a traffic jam and you were stood still for 5-10 minutes, and what there is, they have troop carriers on the road, and if there happened to be a troop carrier quite close to you, then there's an issue because they were the targets. So you'd have a troop carrier with 15 or 20 American or British or Afghan soldiers go transport themselves around the region. If they have, and they did it on the highways that you travelled on, if you're in a traffic jam and one of these, so the 3 or 4 troop carriers were in a convoy, you'd be close to them, then that was a problem, because that was, and I used to say to the driver, get off the road, park over here, just let them go. I don't want to be travelling, because if you're in a traffic jam, you end up going down the road together, and that would be an issue.
That's amazing. I'm trying to put myself, over there in that situation, and I can't. It just scrambles my mind a bit. So fair play to you that you felt that safe over there, and
yeah, I'm going to say the only other time. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The only other time when I did feel vulnerable is they had a T20 competition over there, and they got some foreigners to come in, and I was coaching one of the sides, and Adam Hollyoake was coaching the other side one day. Some international players there, and Adam and we obviously played against each other, so we knew each other well. And we're halfway through this game, suddenly there was an enormous boom, and then suddenly I felt terrible feeling. It felt like a wobbly sensation go through your body with bomb blast. And what happened is that about 80 meters away from where we were on the side of the field, in the dressing room area, there was a suicide bomber that tried to get into the ground, and the security forces on the gate had spotted him, and God bless them, two of the security guards jumped on him and hugged him as he detonated his vest. So they sacrificed themselves, people around them, and then obviously you saw the blast of smoke going up the game was cancelled. But Adam Hollioake and they looked at each other, and that was 18. And that suicide bomber was trying to get in the ground. Now, if he got into the ground, then don't know what his target was. So that's the closest that actually came to an issue.
Unbelievable, amazing story. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I can't, you know, I just can't imagine it. It's just, you know, fair play to Andy being in that situation. Go on.
No, I'm just going to say I'm absolutely speechless. Sorry, Andy. I'll just say I'm absolutely speechless at that story. It just puts everything into perspective. You know, when people are moaning about getting a dodgy decision or whatever, Daryl. But no, it just puts everything into perspective about what you've dealt with, and that's just that's one of the most incredible stories I've heard. Actually, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean.
But I have to say, I really enjoyed my time in Afghanistan. The players made up for it, and to a certain degree, the board and the people they made welcome, and the enjoyment I got, and one of the most enjoyable things I had there. Yes, I coached the national side. We won a test match. We went to the World Cup. That was great, you know, the top. But I worked with the under-19s, and we came fourth in the World Cup in Australia, and we won the Asia Cup. To see and that was 3 years ago, and 8 of those players are now playing in the national side in their different forms. So they've got some really talented young kids coming through. And you know, one thing is when you look back on anything like, you only remember the good bits. You don't remember necessarily. So I look back on my time with Afghanistan cricket with a lot of fondness, and I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to have gone there and try and help some of those guys. For example, let me do one story. There was one kid who was always late coming to practices, and he turned up 2 days late for a camp once. He was the national, so I'm not going to say no. When he turned up, I said, "You're always bloody late. Why are you late? Can't you just get here like everybody else on time?" He said, "I had to go to a funeral." I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "One of my cousins." I said, "Oh, maybe sorry, what happened?" He said, "No, one of the US drones struck a wedding and he was killed." Now that brings it home. That actually makes you think. You know, we're worried about scoring a few runs. We're worried about, you know, winning a toss and batting first or whatever. You know, those guys. There was another story. So I to my mind. There was another kid that turned up late for an under-19 game. He turned up an hour late. I said, "What happened to you this morning?" He said, "No, this morning when we got up, we couldn't go the whole way to the ground because the Taliban got hold of a sympathiser, hung him on a post at the end of my road. So I couldn't go that way to the ground to drive the long way around. That's why I'm late. I'm so sorry." Now these are things that these guys put up with, not every day, but you know, every 2 or 3 months. There's issues like that they have to put up with, you know, and I take my hats off to them what they do.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, their support over there as well is good as well, Andy, isn't it? The support they get for the national team. The support they get.
Oh, the support is magnificent.
Yeah.
Their national round holds about, well, I'd say probably about 7,000 or 8,000. And when they played this T20 Cup, they had 15,000 in there. They crammed them in, you know, and they're so passionate. They love it. The cricketers there are like demigods. You know, they're revered, they're worshipped, and you know, to young players, it's their opportunity to get this Mujib, the mystery spinner, who opens the bowling. He played in our under-19 team in New Zealand, and he got picked in the IPL the first time. It was the night before we played Australia in the semi-final of the under-19 World Cup, and nobody could read him. Imagine 19s deal with this kid. He had him anyway. He had a bad game against Australia, and he came to me afterwards. He said, "I'm so sorry, coach." He said, "But sleep tonight because I was sold in the IPL for $400,000. He lived in a tent in the back of his parents' house, shed back in Kabul. He lived in a tent. Suddenly, and played the last 5 or 6 IPLs. He plays in the BPL in Australia. He played county cricket in Middlesex. He's now got money. He's for his extended family. Cricket has done that for him. There's other guys now who are following in his footsteps. Cricket is not just for them. Cricket is something that they play for, not just for their immediate family, but for their extended family.
Oh, absolutely amazing. I mean, Kieran, you want to come in? I know you do, because you're poised there.
I just wanted to mention something at this point, Andy, and I don't know whether you know him or whether you heard of this young man. We are going to get him on one of our promos in the next series, but there's an Afghanistani lad who was called Mortaza Ali. I don't know if you've heard his story, but essentially his story was he fled the Taliban when he was 14 years old. He journeyed across Europe. And he ended up playing, bizarrely, at Cumnor Cricket Club in Oxfordshire. And his story, his family were essentially they were murdered by the Taliban. And Mortaza Ali, fled across Europe, ended up playing at Cumnor, a local Oxfordshire cricket club, just about 2 or 3 miles west of Oxford. And he actually ended up playing a little bit of first-class cricket for the Oxford MCCU. And it's just, I've read his story a few times, and it's just incredible what these lads have had to go through. We can't ever sort of put ourselves in the shoes of what some of these lads have had to go through in the last, in their whole lives essentially. But it must be very humbling for your good self to have had that trust put in you and to help develop Afghanistan cricket, but also help develop some people as well.
Yeah. What it's taught me is that, especially in my coaching role, whenever I don't know what I'm going to do next, I'm looking due to COVID and I can't travel to Afghanistan, so we sort of parted ways, which is perfectly understandable. But having dealt with them, I now really understand that, and I know you both coach. Coaching is not about always what happens on the field. Coaching is about being aware what happens off the field and what is going away from cricket. Because if you can get that right, I guarantee you their cricket will be so much better.
Yeah, totally with you there, Mola. I have to say, I feel like I want to go into. I want to go into your playing history. I think that's where we should go after that story. I mean, amazing career, Andy. I mean, it's very successful Warwickshire side, some amazing players that you played cricket with, and a treble-winning side in 1994. Can you give us just a little bit of a background of your Warwickshire career? I mean, over 20,000 first class and List A runs. So, and I remember watching you play. So, just give us a bit of background there.
Okay, well, I struggled to get into county cricket, and in fact, I wrote to all 70 counties when I was 23 and asked for a trial and didn't get a reply from any of them. Interesting. Well, we're too busy or whatever. And then I was playing in the Birmingham League, and Warwickshire Seconds used to play in that league. And we played against them, and I suddenly thought to myself, I'm as good as some of these guys. Why can't I get a crack? What happened is that Dennis Amiss had a benefit game against Nottingham at the Blackpool Festival, and the Andy Lloyd couldn't play because he got a broken thumb. A friend of mine, Gordon Lord, ex-ECB coaching manager, got hold of me, very good friend of mine, and said, "Look, will you come and play tomorrow, last minute, up in this game in Blackpool?" I said, "Yeah, fine." So I travelled up with the team. I got 65 not out. And when I came off, David and Norman Gifford were three sort of managers of the side, with Dennis playing, Norman Gifford being the captain, and David Brown was the manager coach. And he said to me, "You ever thought about professional cricket?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've been trying for the last 2 or 3 years, but I can't get a chance." And David Brown said to me, leave it with me. And the next year, I got a 6-week trial at the start of the season. Anyway, I managed to get into the first team during that 6 weeks and stayed there for 13 years.
That's amazing. I mean, we've said to one or two of our players, we have now a partnership with Sussex Cricket. Oxfordshire have that partnership, and it works quite well. Previously with Gloucestershire as well, and we've still, some of our lads are now playing for Gloucestershire, which is great to see. But back a little bit further, we were saying to people, send your CVs off to all the counties, see if you can get a trial. That was the thing to do, wasn't it? That's quite interesting. That you actually went down that route as well.
One thing I would say to any young cricketer is, I believe that everybody will get one opportunity at some stage. When the opportunity comes, nobody knows. But the people who are successful, and it applies to life in general, I believe, but I believe in cricket, and I've seen lots of cricketers come through that this applies to. When the opportunity comes up, you must grab it. You must take it. And the thing is, you must recognise when that opportunity arises, whether it be you're playing in front of a talent scout, whether you're playing in a fixture that is going to get good coverage in the press. Everybody, I believe, will get one opportunity. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't recognise that opportunity when it's in front of them, and that for me is a big difference between the few that make it and the few that don't make it.
Yeah, absolutely. The treble winning side that you had some amazing players in. Just name some of the players that you play with and some of the characters within your changing room. Immense, actually.
Well, obviously, in the treble winning side, the kingpin was obviously Brian Lara, who was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, Dennis Amiss, who was a player, Alvin Balacharan, although at the end of their careers, but you saw innings every now and again they played. How on earth did they play that shot or build that innings? But Brian was, I think I said something the other day about he never hit the fielder. I know it's a very simple thing to say, but when he played a cover drive, very rarely did it hit extra cover fielder. Very rarely did it hit mid-off. It always hit the gap. And it happened so often that it wasn't luck. He was ultimately skillful to hit the gaps. And he scored 2,000 runs in a county season quicker than a runner ball. Now, that is absolutely unbelievable. And what that did, of course, it gave our bowlers time to bowl the opposition out. Because we scored, it wasn't something I was very well known for, scoring runs quickly. I was a bit of a blocker. But Brian Lara, and we had Gladstone Small, Tim Munton, Dermot Reeve, Dominic Ostler, Roger Tooze opened with me that year. It was just an unbelievable bunch of guys. Keith Piper was magnificent behind the stumps. Neil Smith. These guys weren't household names, but we all stepped up and punched above our weight because Brian gave us the confidence to explore our dreams and explore our talent. He said something that you could use in your coaching. He said to me once, the best players play the way they practice. Now, if you put somebody in a middle practice, or if you put somebody in a net, they will play the most brilliant shots because they're not under pressure. They have no fear of failure because there's no fielders there. And if they hit one or nick one, they still face the next ball. And Brian said, the best players are the ones that play their way to practice. In other words, he wanted us to have the same mentality. Pretty much we said earlier about the England one-day side. They play, they have no fear of failure. They just play the way they practice in the middle. So they transfer the skills from the practice arena into the performance arena. And if you can do that, then you can have success.
Yeah,
That's amazing advice, Daryl, isn't it? I mean, I just from my perspective, I'm not a great player. I never have been, but in the nets, you're quite right, Andy. In the nets, there's no real pressure. You know you're facing the next ball, and I guess that is really one of the key messages of this evening, to actually have to go out there and play with no fear. I mean, what you said earlier on about the Afghanistan experience, actually, is it the end of the world if you have a bad day? No, it probably isn't. I think playing without fear is just a fantastic mindset to have. And given what you said this evening, playing without fear is the first thing that should be on everybody's mind when they're playing what is essentially a game of cricket. A bit of fun, really.
Yeah, but it is, but there's always that man sitting on your shoulder here, and we've all got him. That man here who shouts in your ear, "Oh, you can't do that. You're not good enough to do that." That he's here, and on here you've got the other person. Yeah, you can do it. You can either listen to this one, or you can listen to this one. It's your choice. But the only one, this one here, who says the bad things, his voice is slightly louder than this guy here, who says that you can do it. You know, and
that's really funny. That's really
like anything in life. It's about taking responsibility. Yeah,
absolutely. I used to play with somebody who used to use that analogy. He was an Australian actually, and he said, "I've got somebody on this shoulder. He's really shouting at me not to play the pull shot, but I've got this guy on this side saying." Pull everything, you know. That was the way.
Daryl, that's really funny though, because he's just summed you up to me in a T. Because obviously, when you coach me, 1 minute you're shouting at me for playing a terrible shot, and the next minute you're saying, "Actually, that's really good." So, Andy, Daryl is that person on both my shoulders. Actually, I'm going to say that now.
It's really interesting though, as well, isn't it? Because sometimes we do assessments in our youngsters. And I tell them, please just be yourself. Don't do what you think the coach wants you to do. Be yourself. Be exactly what you would be in the middle of in a game. That's what we want to see. Don't do what you think you want us to see, because that's not it. We want to see you.
The other thing I'll say to you, coaches, is to also recognise players are like a thumbprint. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
So let them be what they want to be. Recognise that everybody is different, and everybody will do something their own way. What a boring! It'd be very boring if we had 11 Brian Laras. I mean, we'd never get it. But you know, we all must respect the player for the way they play, for their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And you know, coaching for me is to get players to recognise their strengths, recognise their weaknesses, and then play accordingly with enjoyment and responsibility and fun. Yeah. That's it. Simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it at that simple. And the fun element is massive, in my opinion. It's got to be there. You know, it's essential, I think. And Andy, I'm just going to come on, because I know we're getting close to the hour, and I do want to bring it up because you know the tribulations that you've been through, you know, in Afghanistan, but also personally. And I notice one of the phrases is "no one is bulletproof," which I think is on the Edgbaston website. Just give us a little bit of story about, you know, what happened to you 12 months ago. It's you know, it's a difficult subject, but I know you're happy to talk about it. But just tell us how it started and what happened to you, really.
It's not, yeah. Well, it's not difficult. It's just something that happened to me, and you know, just got to get on with it. You know, I don't find it. It's frustrating. It's disappointing, but and so what happened is about well, in fact, it's this Saturday, a year ago. This Saturday, so it's very a year. Is I had my left leg amputated below my knee. And what happened is while I was in India coaching the Afghanistan national team, is I got a cut on the side of my foot. And unfortunately, I contracted an MRSA bug, which was a flesh-eating bug. So I came back to South Africa and spent basically a month in hospital, in and out, having intravenous antibiotics, to try and save. The cut was on the side of my little toe, and the doctors decided to amputate the little toe to try and get ahead because they just couldn't stop it. And I'm a diabetic as well, so I've got a bit of gangrene going on in there as well. So they cut that out, and then they sent me home. Come back in 10 days to look at it. I was home for 3 days and noticed it was very red and very hot. Went back again. They said no, the bug still was in there. And then unfortunately for me, they said, look, we've got to get ahead of it because it's we can't stop it. It's resistant to any of the antibiotics we got. And if we don't get ahead of it, you could end up losing. On Saturday, the 4th of April, the specialist came to see me, and he said to me, "My advice is for you to have the leg amputated below the knee." So I said, my exact words were, I said, "Well, I won't tell you how to play a forward defensive. So I'm not going to tell you how to your job. If you're saying that's the only option," he said, "I'm afraid that's what it is." So at 12 o'clock that day, they wheeled me down, and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon with only half a leg. So from there, thankfully, I had no more infection. It took me probably about 6 weeks to 8 weeks to get the stump or the wound to heal up. And then I got the first prosthetic leg, which you go through. It takes about 4 months where you get different sizes because the stump shrinks all the time. So it took me probably about 4 months before I got the baby I've got at the moment. And I must say that the Players Association, the English Cricket Players Association, Players Trust, were very supportive and helped me with the costs. So I've got a little bit of a from the ankle joint, I've got the curve like Oscar Pistorius. My foot is that curve. Yeah, I've got my training shoe on, which stays on all the time, and I'm fully mobile. I can get around. When really, and I used the as a bit of motivation. I walked. I think it was 10 kilometres. I think I walked over increments, a bit at a time, and raised £15,000 for the charity, for the English Players Trust, which is a magnificent organisation that looks after professional players who have fallen on hard times. And when I look around, honestly, when I look around at the COVID situation, and I see people that have lost their brothers, their sisters, and their mothers and fathers, I've lost half a leg. Yeah, it's not great. It's I have my downtime every now and again. I have a little feel sorry for myself, but I'll soon buck out of it and think, really, what have you got to be sorry for? I've got nothing to feel sorry for. I've a fantastic playing career. I've been to World Cups. I've been to T20 World Cups. I've coached Test cricket. I've coached in Afghanistan. I've coached in schools. And as far as I'm concerned, my career is not over. I have a character that I believe can motivate people to do well, either it be at professional level or league. What I'd like to do is to work at development level. I'd love to work with 18 to 22-year-olds and try and help them make the grade, become first class cricket. It's something that I struggled to get the grade when I was that age. Nobody would give me a chance. And I think that I am a fighter, and I am a person that doesn't give in. And I think I have a lot of qualities that can help some of the youngsters achieve their goals.
Yeah, brilliant, Kieran.
Andy, the whole hour to me has been a real inspiration, and your story just there reminds me very, very much of a young man that I know that myself have been following quite a lot, and also a few others that are watching. A young man over here by the name of Billy Munger, who I've actually had the pleasure of conversing with previously a couple of years back. Yes. Billy Munger, obviously the young man that lost both his legs in that horrific motorsport accident, and he's just done something incredible for charity, and the positivity that shines through. He actually has said very similar things to you, that you have to stay positive, and it obviously a huge setback, but something that you can overcome with that positive attitude that you seem to have, and as you say, in the grand scheme of things, I guess that there, as you mentioned, particularly in this horrible year of COVID, that there are a lot of things to be worried about, and your positivity, Andy, has just shone through incredibly today, and very, very similar story to that young man who I think the whole of the UK are very proud of. Actually, Daryl, I know that you saw what he did for Comic Relief the other week. He raised hundreds of thousands of pounds actually. So, Andy, it's been an incredible hour, I have to say. It's been one of our one of the most incredible chats we've actually had. I mean, the story from the Taliban has just blown me away. Actually, that they basically, gave you their word essentially that they weren't going to target you. That's just incredible to have that in the back of your mind. Actually, to have that in the back of your mind, it's just incredible that you can talk so candidly about it, and it's wonderful actually to hear that the high esteem that you were held in Afghanistan, and the high esteem that you're clearly held in, wherever you've been. So just from me, I know we've ticked over the hour slightly. I want to say a massive thank you, Andy. Thankfully, the technology has held up this evening. Occasional bit of buffering. We've heard every word, which is great. So that's good news. From me, Andy, I just want to say a massive thank you. Again, it's been unbelievable. And yet we're very grateful that you came back on and gave us a second chance after Thursday, because that was disappointing. But as you said, that was a setback, and we bounce back from setbacks, don't we?
Good. I just want to wish everybody out there a great summer. And I know there's been hard times over the last 12 months, but get out there and get that leather on the willow and have a great summer. And I wish you all plenty of fifers and 50s and 100s and good catches.
What wise words. One thing I was going to ask you, Andy, because we didn't have chance. If you had a superpower, I'm going to ask you tonight, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Wish 3 legs.
I've got. Oh no.
3 legs. Then I don't have 2 instead of 3.
No, Andy, I echo what Kieran has said tonight. I mean, thanks for being so honest. It's been inspirational. I've been holding back some tears, actually, if I'm totally honest. So, thank you for being so honest. I've really enjoyed our hour together and sharing those stories, because I think they're very relevant and heartwarming, inspirational, all those sort of things. You could, any superlatives, really. So thanks again for coming back on and joining us and sharing those stories. We thank you massively for that. And yeah, good luck for the future, and I hope you can get into that development side of things as well. So good luck.
And when you're back over in the UK, Andy, I know you won't be probably.
Bless you. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Andy, I was just going to say, when you're back in the UK, please do pay a visit to us, and we will happily have you as part of our next charity game, whenever that may be. So if you're in the UK in the next 12 to 18 months, give us a shout, and we'll very much welcome you.
Yeah.
Well, you may well see me, because my son's just moved into the Oxfordshire area from South Africa. He's moved over there, so I shall look you up when I go and come to see you.
Lovely. That'll be great. That will be brilliant. Andy, again, thanks very much.
Okay, guys. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you very much.
Guys,
Cheers.
I hope you've been inspired by our conversations with Mola tonight. Absolutely brilliant for me. It's just awe-inspiring, I have to say. So all it leaves for me to say is, please join us again for Masked Cricketer, the series finale, your last chance for this series to hashtag Ask the Mask on hashtag TMC. Thanks, Dan Norcross, for that. And we hope you have, if you've been netting tonight, I hope that's gone well. It's been brilliant weather, so hopefully enjoying your cricket. But from myself and K-Dog, and there may be a bit of a change on Thursday. You just don't know with us.
April Fool's Day.
It is April Fool's, so you never know what's going to happen. So we just wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you again on Thursday at 7:00 on Facebook Live and our YouTube channel. But for now, keep safe, and we'll see you then. Bye.